Penn State men's basketball is 500 to this point. Bucknell was certainly, what was that, a quad 4 loss,
It's
Adam?
as bad of a loss as anybody can have, is
Yeah.
what I can tell you.
Yeah. Okay. But they beat an 8-1, now 8-2 Ohio State team. They hand them that loss and they erase an 18-point deficit. So there's something there. There's a lot of good there to work with. At least my assessment's still the same. This was a team that I figured was going to start slow. And the sooner they can pick this up, the better, of course. But I feel like this is going to be a second half team, kind of similar to last season, because it's the way of trying to bring all these different parts together. You have a new head coach. It's not Micah Shrewsbury was in year 2, but you had a new head coach this year. You're bringing in players that were used to his system. You're now bringing in players that were used to Micah Shrewsbury's system, now have to get used to Mike Rhoades' system, but they're also used to the Penn State way, right? So they're used to how Penn State as a whole operates. And I'm talking academics. I'm talking like just class structure, like day in the life type of things compared to VCU or compared to any other institution that they brought kids in from, right? Whether it was Kansas City or Temple, VCU, right? All over the place. And then you got to mesh all these different chemistries, these different styles of basketball all together. So I'm not saying that Penn State gets a pass, gets an excuse for losing to Bucknell at home. But what does impress me, Adam, is even after that game, there was no hangover. They took Maryland to overtime on the road to open up Big Ten play. And then they erase an 18-point deficit at a halftime and beat the Ohio State Buckeyes, who are proving to be at least a competitor inside of the Big Ten. We'll see how it all unfolds. Anybody, you might as well pick a team out of a hat, right, for the Big Ten Conference to this point in men's basketball. But what have you seen about this team that makes you either believe, skeptical? What is your overall assessment to this point through 10 games and 2 conference games?
I think we've seen a lot from this Penn State team, a lot of good and a lot of bad. I think that's kind of as expected. I mean, anyone who had expectations that this team was going to come in, start 12-1 and was going to run through their conference slate early in the year. I mean, that's just unrealistic for a team that's trying to makeshift a lot of parts and try to bring them together. It's nearly an impossible situation. You look around the country, everybody seems to have a loss similar to Penn State's loss. I mean, you look at Georgia Tech, who they'll play this week. They have a loss to UMass Lowell, and then they also beat Duke. So, I mean, you have that. You have Northwestern, who beat #1 Purdue and then just last night lost to Chicago State. So, I mean, everybody has these losses that just don't make much sense. So I think that's what you're going to say to Penn State, where it just wasn't their day at home against Bucknell. But the Ohio State game, I think that's the game that kind of just pixelates everything Penn State's been. Really bad start to that game. Got down 18. We're not playing good. But then they found a way to get going. And I think the key is the 2 guards, and it's been the 2 guards all year. Ace Baldwin Jr. and Kanye Clary really bring this team to where they need to be when they're attacking. When they get passive, try to move the ball around, don't attack the defense. You can see the defenses be able to stop Penn State, handle Penn State a good bit. They need them to be aggressive consistently for 40 minutes. And when they do that, they're really tough to beat. You look at the VCU game when Kanye Clary was out, that was Ace Baldwin's best offensive performance against his former team. Kanye's had a bunch of great games this year. He was really good at Maryland in the game. They ended up losing in overtime, but they just have to find a way to keep those guards going, especially because the problem for this team, a lot of teams have seen that, is their interior post play right now. A lot of it due to inavailability. Favor Ire is still out. He's been out all season. Demetrius Lilly reportedly had the flu and was not able to play against Ohio State. That's why he was not there. Leo O'Boyle is trying to play the 5 coming off the bench. It's not his natural position. You can see offensively really worked, hit 5 threes against Ohio State, but defensively that's kind of been the issue, trying to guard guys a lot bigger than him, something he's just not used to playing at Penn State. So it's been a lot on Kudus Wahab trying to play that position really by himself, and that's kind of been the issue for this team. But I think there's a lot of good and a lot of bad to take away. And the one thing, they have a lot of veterans they brought in, a lot of guys who know how to win, that's been on slumps and trying to get out of slumps, guys like Puff Johnson and DeMarco Dunn from North Carolina, Zach Hicks from Temple. And then Kanye Clary, he dealt with this last year. They had a 5-game losing streak in January going to February. He obviously wasn't a huge key contributor to that team. He was coming off the bench in a role position, but now as a leader, he knows how to handle that. And getting Jameel Brown back is going to be huge as well. He's still out with an injury, but hopefully getting him back soon will add another shooter to this team, which could make them more dangerous offensively.
Adam, whose team is this exactly? Who would you say is the face of this Penn State team? Is it kind of co-captain, right? Ace Baldwin, Kanye Clary, or would you? Because right now, just the way the box scores and the overall flow of the game, seems like this is Kanye Clary's team. Interestingly enough, I know he was the returner from Penn State, didn't transfer out, and
Mhm.
great, he's been awesome for the Nittany Lions. But you figured since this was Ace Baldwin's coach and he was the A10 Player of the Year, that this would be his squad. It's hard to argue one way or the. Am I misinterpreting this here?
No, I think that's a fair point. It's trying to figure out who team. I think when you have two ball dominant guards, it's always going to be a question, especially early in the year, who's going to take the reins. I think Kanye's really took the reins as the best player on this team, but as a leader wise, I think Coach Rhoades especially wants this to be Ace Baldwin's team as a leader, and I think he hasn't got that all the time this year, and I think that's why we've seen Ace Baldwin, not start the game against Bucknell. He's not started a couple games this year, and I was like, Ace Baldwin Jr. not starting. I mean, he's the guy who was supposed to be Penn State's best player. How's he the one getting pulled out of lineup, especially because he's a Mike Rhoades guy? And Mike Rhoades has been consistent saying we just need a better Ace Baldwin, and we haven't got that yet. And I think you start to see that. Hopefully the shots he hit down the stretch against Ohio State to help them win that game might really propel him to get going. But I think he's maybe more the vocal leader, but play-wise, I mean, this team runs through Kanye Clary and his ability to get to the rim, his ability to create for his teammates. That's where this team on the floor will go by. But leadership-wise, it's Ace Baldwin Jr. Puff Johnson has been a big leader for this team, has not played particularly well on the floor to where a lot of people maybe expected him to be, as he expected him to be, was injured early in the year, maybe trying to get that consistency back. But, I mean, that's just going to be the big thing. I think Ace Baldwin Jr. take the vocal leadership role and still be willing to, defer at times to Kanye Clary in the backcourt because of how well he's played this season. I think that good balance can be very dangerous. I mean, Chris Holtman said it after the Penn State game, after the game again with Ohio State. Penn State might have the most dangerous backcourt in the conference with their ability with Ace Baldwin Jr. and Kanye Clary. So I think they just got to continue to pressurize that and allow Kanye to really do his thing and Ace still be the vocal leader that he needs to be, while also sometimes taking a back seat to his guard counterpart.